Welcome back to Dadhood, and in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about handling a toddler and a newborn at the same time. First of all, it's probably good to explain how things were when we only had one child, when it was just Isa, and how everything was pretty much just focused around him. First, let's start with the good things. Number one, it was easy to take care of him when my wife was busy. When my wife had things to do, whether it was getting on with some tasks, whether it was doing house chores, or whether it was just relaxing, it was easy for me to just take Isa, give him some attention, play with him, take him out, and just really focus on taking care of him and being focused on him. Of course, it was easy because it was just him. There was no other baby who was pulling at my leg, or that I had to check if this other baby needed to change, or if I had to feed this baby, or I had to cuddle this baby, or I had to put this other baby to sleep. All of my efforts were focused on what Isa wanted. When he was hungry, what did he want to eat? When he was frustrated, what was frustrating him? When he wanted to play, what games did he want to play? And all the while, my wife could pretty much get along with what she was doing because I didn't have to call on her for help when I have two of them, like what happens now. When one of them needs one thing and the other needs another thing, I obviously need another parent in the room because I don't have multiple hands. The second point is that all the activities that we were doing as a family were pretty much focused on Isa's development. And for activities in the home, we wouldn't have to think about whether this activity is going to be safe enough with a newborn around, or that how can we distract the newborn whilst focusing on the toddler. And so while it was Isa, all those activities were pretty much focused on what he likes, and all the logistics that go behind the activities were focused around him. And so now for 2 points in terms of the negative side. First of all, I was a brand new parent. I didn't know what I was getting into, and so even doing the simple things seemed like a huge task. Simple things like changing a nappy, or making sure the bottle is at the right temperature, or the bath water is at the right temperature. All of these kind of things were seeming quite difficult at the time. And so when it came to the simple things, I was just overthinking them and spending a lot more time on them than I should have. But obviously, having gone through that experience with Isa, I was much more well prepared with Sarah, and things did not seem so tough. The second point in terms of negative is that the nights were super tough with Isa. Isa was the kind of baby that did not want to be put down when being put to sleep. Isa would just want to be cuddled to sleep, and even once you got him to sleep, after 5 minutes he'd wake up, he'd want to be cuddled again. And then when it's time for us to go to sleep, he'd want to sleep with us in our bed as well. Not only that, he did not sleep well through the night. He woke up very often, he needed feeds very often, he needed to be changed very often through the night. So you could say both me and the mum did not get much sleep with just Isa. And when Sarah had arrived, obviously Isa was a bit older, his sleeping patterns were a bit more focused, they weren't sort of all over the place. And Sarah is actually a very good sleeper, or well, she was when she was a newborn, now she's about 9 months old. So next, I just want to share some of my thoughts that I had when Sarah was arriving, whilst my wife was still pregnant with Sarah. So starting off with the positives again, the first one, which is something that I mentioned earlier, is that I became more confident as a father. Obviously, having gone through this experience with Isa, I was much more ready for the newborn stage, and I could handle all of the different types of slip-ups or difficulties that could potentially happen when Sarah arrived. Number two, I was quite excited to have a newborn in the house again. Now that Isa had reached the toddler age, he was in his terrible twos, pretty much had enough of his tantrums, and so it was nice to think about that a newborn would be arriving, and that should be nice and quiet and very cute and small. And thirdly, I was quite excited for Isa to have a sibling to play with. Isa is a super sociable kid. Whenever we go to the park, he's always making friends with the different kids out in the park. He plays well with my cousins and with his aunties and his uncles. He just loves being around company. And so him having a sibling, I was hoping was going to be a great point of development for him. And I was just excited to see how he would interact with his sibling. So now some of the negative thoughts. First up, I wasn't so sure how I was going to manage my time. Being a young father, working full-time, doing studies in my part-time, I was already super stretched when it came to my time management. And now adding another child into the mix, I was dreading it, and I wasn't sure how was I going to handle having 2 kids while still doing everything else. Secondly, I was afraid that I'd be splitting my attention between Isa and Sarah, and that one of them may have less development than the other because I'm giving them different amounts of time, different amounts of attention. And thirdly, tied into that, I thought that would also lead to me having maybe a favorite child. And I don't want to come across like I've got a favorite child. I want to be able to give as much to both children as possible. So now, how was it when Sarah actually arrived? Well, Isa actually reacted pretty well. He didn't get jealous, except for when she got a bit older, like now. Taking care of Sarah was actually pretty much a breeze. I think in the combination of having the experience, having more confidence, and the fact that she slept pretty well throughout the night, it was pretty good. And obviously when Sarah was born, I wasn't at work. I was taking my paternity leave, so I was able to be accessible to my wife whenever she needed anything. That did then get tougher when I went back to work. Although I was working at home, it just meant that I was obviously less accessible because I had my work tasks to do. But also at the same time, it's a blessing that I was working at home, because if there was anything that I was really needed for, I could just step away from my desk and immediately help, rather than if I was all the way in the office on the other side of London. When Sarah arrived, there were some negative points too. For example, I felt like I really didn't know who Sarah was for the first couple of weeks. She was kind of like just that baby that I took care of whenever her mum needed a break. Also, unfortunately, Isa's screen time did increase, because whilst I had to go back to work, it was difficult for my wife, understandably, to show attention to both the newborn and Isa. And so to distract him while she was showing more attention to Sarah or trying to get things done, Isa would be distracted by screen time. And another negative point was that our structure of our day was totally thrown off, because now both Isa and Sarah had their own individual body clocks. They had their own kinds of needs during the day. And so what we were used to with Isa was totally changed. And so just to wrap up, I want to share some thoughts on how things are now that Sarah is about 9 months and Isa is about 2.5. In terms of the good things, just like I was hoping that Isa would react well and would like to have a sibling in the house, they do play nicely together most of the time. Also at this age, Isa is much more aware of structure, and so it's a bit more easier to get him to do things. Like for example, in the morning, he knows he needs to go straight to the bathroom to go to the toilet, and he knows in the afternoon that we're going to give him some food. We managed to also secure a double stroller, so now we can actually put them both into the pushchair and go for walks as a family, and that's been really good, especially during lockdown. Also, we've got loads of family support, alhamdulillah. We've been able to figure out a rota where Isa can go over to my mum and stay with her for the weekend. And so we have some time to just focus on Sarah, and to also give ourselves as parents a bit of a break from having to handle both the toddler and the newborn at the same time. Some of the bad points though is that, for example, Isa is a bit more jealous now because Sarah's at the age where she's crawling around and she's playing with toys, and often she goes to pick up his toys when he's playing with them. Also, of course, as she's getting older, she's becoming a bit more demanding when it comes to her sleep routine and when it comes to her food routine as well. And Sarah's not how she used to be with her sleep. I mentioned before, at the newborn stage, she pretty much just knocked out during the night. But now it's a bit all over the place. So what's the toughest thing and the best thing at the moment? The toughest thing now is that they're both very active in their development. Sarah wants a lot more attention and Isa wants to be a lot more independent. And so catering to both of them can be quite overwhelming. But the best thing at the moment actually follows on from the toughest thing. The fact that we can see their development makes us very excited for what the future plans could be. So thanks for watching my video about how to handle a toddler and a newborn at the same time. I'm hoping my pretty much fresh experience at the moment has given you a bit more of an insight, whether you have a toddler and a newborn now, whether you're expecting to have a newborn, or whether you haven't got kids at all and you're just interested in what the journey is going to be like. If that clarified things for you and you enjoyed it, please do hit subscribe, do leave a comment down below and share this around.